With that, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody, to the February 23rd, 2026 regular City Council meeting. And I'd like to, at this point, ask the city clerk to please call the roll.
Councillor McLaughlin,
Present.
Councillor Runyon,
Present.
Councillor Randall,
Present.
Councillor Richardson,
Present.
Councillor
Present. Present.
Reese.
I'm here. Number two is the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd like to ask Councillor Rod Runyon to please lead us in the pledge.
Stand if you're able. Caps removed. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with
liberty
liberty
and justice for all.
Item 4 is approval of the agenda. We do have one minor amendment, and that is to add to the consent agenda, item E, surplus of airport vehicle, which would be item E under item number 9E. So with that, I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilor Richardson and seconded by Councilor Ring to approve the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5. We're going to be hearing about the University of Oregon Sustainable City Year Program. And I believe Megan Banks and Mr. Joshua Chandler will be presenting this. Is that right?
Yeah, and my apologies here, trying to get somebody logged in. 1 second. Hopefully it's not going to take too long for us.
Is she on Zoom or on the, I don't see her.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Oh.
Can you just email it to me?
Yes.
If you think it might be a while, we can always come back to it.
Hopefully not too long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's Ian.
I have one individual on here that's going to be joining us, so hopefully this other one wraps up pretty quick. My apologies for the delay
Okay.
here.
Is this the same presentation that was given to the Urban Renewal Agency?
Yeah, it was. In a couple, just before we get into it, we have made from your packet, there were some additional changes after the packet material went out. There were some changes that went into the overall, really length of the project. So it was condensed a little bit further. I know we have a busy meeting tonight, so we did condense some down. So I'll be sharing my screen. I know it's all in the packet, but like I said, we've condensed it a little bit. So I am, in perfect timing. I think I talked long enough here. I'm joined this evening by Megan Banks with University of Oregon Sustainable City Year Program, as well as our community development analyst, Ann Moorhead. Ann was our recent rare with the city just in the last 2 years. So we've all been kind of working on this project together. And this is really just initial conversations that we've had with University of Oregon about this potential project. Or partnership, better yet. Megan will kind of kick us off with this presentation, and then I'm going to jump in towards the tail end of it and kind of carry on with the rest of it and kind of talk through what we're really asking of council this evening, or what the discussion is pertaining to here. So without further ado, I'd like to hand this over to Megan Banks.
Hey, let me start again. Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. It is a pleasure to be here this evening. I'm Megan Banks. I direct the Sustainable City Year Program at the University of Oregon. We can move on to the next slide. So I just want to talk about kind of philosophically, we know that the world needs research, we need ideas, we need solutions, and leveraging the role of universities to fill that role for the benefit of society is extremely important. But as you know firsthand, change happens at the local government level. However, there is so much that needs to get done on the ground at the local level that it is really hard to find time for anything else, such as examining best practices or new ideas, new ways of thinking about things. And it also might be that there's not the political space to explore ways of doing things differently. But part of the reason for being for universities is indeed to think about new ways of doing things. So where does SCYP fit into this philosophical questions? Our program, through year-long partnerships between cities and the university, helps solve communities' issues of today while also laying the groundwork for your future. We also allow our university students to prepare themselves better to get into the workforce through applied learning. So, next slide, please. So we have been in existence since 2009, 2010. We worked across the state, and we have worked in urban and rural environments and are comfortable with all of the above. So what we like to do is provide a mechanism to get knowledge into practice and help universities improve the quality of life for all Oregonians. Next slide. So what can an SCYP partnership include? It can include a variety of city-identified projects, disciplines, classes, faculty, all drawing from the expertise on the university side and applying that as a value add to a city's projects. Next slide. So some of the disciplines that I've engaged with communities through our existence over the past 15, 16 years have ranged from architecture to public relations. We've worked with 5 of the 7 colleges that the University of Oregon has on campus. We also work with other public universities. We want to put the public back in public universities, and we can do so by engaging with Portland State, Oregon State, Eastern Oregon. They have all been a part of SCYP partnerships in the past. Moving on. So what do we request from a city in terms of time commitment? We have a primary staff person on the city side that works with the primary person on the university side, and they're doing a lot of the coordination and reaching out to their people. And this may be depending on whether it's the beginning, middle, or end of the term. It might be 5+ hours per week. We also ask that community and elected officials participate. There are often events, there are presentations, there are open houses, and so students want to learn about your community from you. You are the experts on your community. So engaging with you is extremely important for the students, and they really value it. We also work with technical leads on a particular project. These are the staff that know more than anybody what they're trying to accomplish, and they can support the students from an expertise type of way. So we might ask again for a couple hours a week from those staff. Moving on. So in summary, the Sustainable City Year program provides capacity for communities. We know that we are never able to get everything done, but bringing in a multitude of students to support your efforts can move you farther, faster. Students bring creativity along with enthusiasm and excitement, and they want to affect change while they're in school, and they want to work on real world issues, and these are what you are working on every day. They also help society meet the pressing challenges that are, as our world changes very quickly, they are up to speed, along with faculty who are specialists in their field. We also, on the university side, want to create a transformational model for higher education so that students are getting applied learning and experiential learning experiences while they're still in school. And lastly, we are happy to be graduating students who are more familiar with Oregon. They're more familiar with what goes on the local level. And perhaps these are students that you might be employing in the future because they have that exposure and expertise.
So thank you, Megan. So Megan introduced the program in general, the SCYP program, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how that program fits with the city of the Dalles. So our team has been working with Megan for the past few months to lay out basically a work plan of various different projects of covering different departments. And these are not new initiatives that we're talking about. These are all existing priorities that we feel this partnership can help accelerate progress and focus on moving those projects forward. The different focus areas that we've kind of highlighted as a team are economic development, housing, historic preservation, tourism, and transportation. When we touch on the economic development side of things, we've highlighted programs or projects, including downtown market analysis and retail mix strategy, business retention and expansion program. These two projects will actually, we currently have an economic development intern who is laying the foundation that can be used as data points to begin this project if we end up having this partnership with the University of Oregon. Also, when it comes to housing, these are specific to the housing production strategy, moving the housing production strategy forward. So we have talked before, housing production strategy, it was easy to implement it, I would say. It's going to be a little more difficult, a little more constrained on our resources and staff time to implement every single one of those strategies laid out. So this includes taking a look at a collaboration with architecture students to prepare pre-approved plans, also creating technical assistance for materials to assist our small developers in the community to make it easier to navigate through the development process. This work complements a recent DLCD grant that our department received that we're going to be working on this next year to improve our development review process. When we talk about historic preservation, the city is a certified local government. We pride ourselves on our historic roots, the foundation that we have here in the community, and this will give us the opportunity to move forward some of our historic landmarks commission goals. Many of these haven't been able to move forward because they're bigger undertakings. For instance, updating the city's historic inventory, updating our historic guidelines, things like that. Our staff has been working, and we will be submitting for 2 SHPO grants up to $24,000 to assist in some of these initiatives and also offset some of the work of the SCYP. There's also some tourism focus and transportation. Transportation, there would be one thing we're highlighting, looking at as a walkability study of our west side. This would play in directly to our TGM grant that the city has for the west side to take a look at gaps in our infrastructure, as well as also moving forward some of the initiatives and feasibility of some of the work outlined in the city's transportation system plan. So overall, getting to the numbers, program cost. So this program, when we finalize or we work through a work plan, there could be up to 15 projects that we have selected at this point. Not all of these projects will be selected. I'll get into some of the factors here in a little bit. It really comes out to about an average cost of about $13,000. These projects vary here and there. And the program that we have laid out so far, like I said, it's still in the proposal stage, is about $195,000 to complete 15 different projects spanning, like I said, economic development, the community development department, the public works division. Not all the projects that are proposed will be matched. We understand that it's all going to be ultimately, the city is not at this point or when the partnership begins, we are not committing ourselves to complete a specific project. We have outlined different projects that we could complete during that period of time. And all those the cost is really going to depend on the number of students enrolled, different resources and complexity that are going into each project. Of course, travel time, University of Oregon down in Eugene, there's a little bit of travel to come to on-site review of different projects that they'll be working on. And from a cost perspective, this approach is significantly more affordable than a traditional consultant path. Keep in mind, this is not an apples to apples comparison of a consultant, nor is it an apples to apples comparison of a staffer, bringing on a staffer. You know, the argument could be said it's $195,000. That's maybe an FTE or two. We're getting different work products here. But at the end of the day, what we are doing is this partnership will help us move many of these initiatives forward compared to going the consultant route where you're not getting near as much work done in the period of time. So with that 195,000, as I mentioned up there, I didn't touch on it on the screen. We have presented to the Urban Renewal Agency. We're also seeking funds through SHPO's, a couple of SHPO grants, but we wanted to have this conversation ahead of the budget cycle to see kind of way, to get council's really feedback and any comments that you have about a potential commitment of upwards of $130,000. This could span over the course of 2 years, and it would depend on, you know, SHPO funding. If we do receive SHPO funding, that could drop to about a 106. And also it would, depending on how many projects that we do, it could drop even below that. You know, it's really just kind of depending on how the program moves and how we move forward with it. Full transparency, this is different than how typical local government works. You know, this isn't a process where we are going through a budgeting process. You know, we are not presenting this at a budget meeting. This is actually something that University of Oregon looks for an early commitment from cities in next month. Within the next month or two. And then from there, we understand most cities are going to be going through the budgeting process. So it's a little different than that. But how it's effectively structured is every year, most of our departments factor in time for contracting services, consulting services. How we've laid it out for this year's budget is we still, no matter whether you do the program or not, there's still money that is going to be budgeted, at least in the Community Development Department's fund, to move forward some of these initiatives, whether it be through this partnership or through a consultant. So, like I said, tonight, really just wanted to get, you know, council's consideration for this. Any thoughts that you have, any questions, and whether you think it's wise for us to move forward with including this into our budget. Future action, of course, all this funding would be determined, authorized through the budgeting process. And if supported, we would be looking at a partnership beginning fall 2026. So, with that, I have just up here, it's included in your packet. I'm not going to read through it, but this is just a quote that was provided by the former mayor of the city of Albany. Staff has also reached out to the city of Salem to go over two previous partnerships the city of Salem had. Nothing but great things to say about it. They say, you know, the difficult part is figuring out the budgeting process. Other than that, they had nothing but great things to say about it. I think they completed in recent years upwards of 30 different projects for the city of Salem. So really able to kind of move the needle on some of these things and moving some of these projects forward that, you know, frankly, we don't always have the bandwidth. So with that, Megan and I are happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions for Josh and or Megan or comments?
So excuse me, Mr. Mayor. I met with Josh momentarily, just for a moment or two this morning, and he brought this subject up. And I think it's always good to work with the higher learning education entities of our state to move us ahead. But talking about cost, one of the things that you mentioned this morning, Josh, was that doing this kind of a joint operation may get us ahead of the game and ultimately save the city money in the long term. Did I hear that correctly?
Yep, effectively. And and definitely want to point out that, when we hire a consultant, when you get a consultant, you're getting the entire package wrapped up in a bow and delivered. A lot of what we get with this is the work, the groundwork that staff will then continue to take through the implementation process. But yes, to your point, we do believe this is a great value overall for what we get.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Council Randall.
Yeah, Josh, it's interesting you talked about the Historic Landmarks Commission, because that's exactly what we were speaking about in our goal setting is ways to get students involved, generate some interest in historical preservation, but also assist in some of the achieving some of the goals we have laid out for our committee. So I think we're interested.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and that's the thing with our historic landmarks goals. They have been a bit stale for a while, and I know this year we're actually reworking them. And this is yes our opportunity to try to move historic landmarks goals forward. And this just gives us that opportunity.
Counselor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Josh. Just a couple of quick comments. Pardon me. One is that obviously we need to be mindful of the dollars involved, but to my mind, the costs include just staff time, attention. You know, you can only do so much, even if the cost is very reasonable. So I would just encourage you all to be mindful of that. And my second comment is, having been involved with a study or two over the years in various roles and work and whatever, I understand that the production of a study or a plan or the report is the student's deliverable. And I guess I would encourage or propose that the city's deliverable would actually be the next step. Like if you're going to accept a study, it's not done on your end until you have a way to apply it or put it into action, whether that's a workshop or you're taking it to the committee for act. It's something besides just like study's done. Like what's next?
Right. Yep. Yeah. We wanted to that point, want to be very clear that these are, we're not looking for just this fluff to add to. I don't have time for it, honestly. This is interconnected. The projects that we're selecting are interconnected with the other work that we have going on. So it kind of carries the value through. And when it comes to staff time, I do want to point out the reason Ann is on the call here is that Ann has actually been working with us part-time while she actually attends her master's at Portland State. And she would effectively be the staffer that would be assigned to this project. So her staff, we would be able to have someone completely committed to it every week.
Sounds good. Thanks.
I have one comment and a few questions. First, $130,000 seems very reasonable for, it seems to me, what we're getting. And if Ann is involved, I remember Ann from a couple of years ago. I think she's terrific, and I think she'd do a great job with it. One of the questions on page 5, you list the cities are all listed there as to who was taking advantage of this program, and there was an LTD listed. What is? If maybe I missed it. What is?
I believe it's and Megan, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's Lane Transit District.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've worked with both TriMet and Lane Transit District as partners. So that enables us to actually broaden beyond just one city because they're covering their district boundaries.
Right. Okay. Thanks. And then on page 11, you list the themes. I want to make sure that we all understand that these themes were picked by the staff and working with Megan. Is that right?
Yeah.
There's probably 100 things we could list, but we pretty much centered on these 5.
Yep. Yeah. It all blossomed from working with Ann. Ann has been tasked with working on the pre-approved. She's working on a number of housing production strategy actions. One of those was the pre-approved plans. So she started doing some research and was able to connect with the architecture program at University of Oregon, and then blossomed into conversations with Megan. So then from there, we grew the work plan a bit.
Now, it wasn't too long ago that you were understaffed. The positions we had authorized through the budget were not filled. You're completely filled now? Is that?
Yep. Fully staffed.
Okay.
Yep.
And I've always taken a liking to what you mentioned, the West Side plan. I think that's really important. I'm not suggesting that we put all our eggs in that basket, but I'd like to put a plug in for that particular project because we've been talking about that since I first became mayor. And
yep, it's been a while.
I think it's a vital part of our goals and objectives for the coming couple of years. So with that, I thank you. Unless there's any other questions or comments. Nope. Thank you, Megan. Thank
Thank you for your time.
you, Ann. It's good to see you again. And thank you, Josh. Okay. Item 6 is audience participation. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject which does not later appear on the agenda. Interested citizens are required to sign up in advance to be recognized. Up to 3 minutes per person will be allowed. I believe we have a clock that is working fine. Citizens are encouraged to ask questions with the understanding that the city can either answer the question tonight or refer the question to the appropriate staff member who will get back to you within a reasonable amount of time. If a response by the city is requested, that response is not immediately provided. Excuse me. It will be referred to the city manager for further action. Now, if you want to speak on something that's on the agenda, you have to wait until that agenda item comes up, and you will also get up to 3 minutes to voice your opinion about something that's on the agenda. So, okay, it looks like all but one are not on the agenda. So we'll start with Ellen Potter. You want to come forward and please introduce yourself, and please be mindful of the time.
Hi, my name's Ellen Potter. I am the executive director at the Dalles Arts Center, and my letter is too long, so I'm going to have to consolidate this a little bit. I am here tonight to formally object to the proposed 9-day street closure for 4th Street for the Cherry Festival Carnival, both on behalf of the Dalles Arts Center and on behalf of many other businesses and organizations that will be harmed by this decision. This objection is not new. For the past 5 weeks, I have been repeatedly trying to contact the Chamber of Commerce to discuss the issues that face us with this closure. I have been completely ignored and not responded to by a single employee or member of the Chamber. So I bring it to you guys. We were told back in November that the 4th Street closure was not feasible and that it would not happen. With that assurance from Lisa Farquharson at the Chamber, we have moved forward with our annual planning. Due to that annual planning, we have a large fundraiser scheduled during that closure. We cannot move it. Invitations have already gone out, and that fundraiser accounts for approximately 90% of our revenue for the month. It will be disastrous if the street closure happens and that fundraiser suffers. We also have many accessibility concerns. We serve elderly patrons, people with disabilities, families with young children, and school groups. Closing 4th Street eliminates safe direct access to our facility and many of the other facilities on 4th Street. During the Cherry Festival event that was held on 4th Street previously, TDAC experienced significant overuse of our facilities and damage. Our bathrooms were flooded, and we experienced loss or theft of services through our electrical boxes on the outside of our building. Nobody was ever held responsible for this, even though vendors did admit that the Chamber and told them to use those facilities. Finally, I want to raise serious concerns about process. After speaking with City Public Works to voice our concerns, I was assured that if significant business concerns were raised, they would not approve a street closure of this duration. However, I have been informed that that has been removed, and it is now the City Council and City Manager's decision. This does not seem right. The rest of us are held to clear standards. When we request street closures, we are required to follow established procedures, work through the appropriate departments, and obtain consent from our neighbors. The question for City Council is not whether Cherry Festival should take place. It is whether it should be held in a location that creates documented safety risks, eliminates ADA access, or forces business to close.
Nice timing.
Shorten it enough there.
That's okay. Does anybody besides me have any questions for Ellen? The handicapped accessibility issue is, where is your handicapped entrance?
Our handicap entrance is in the back. Currently, the map that has been submitted by the chamber, which has not been sent to us, but has been forwarded to me by other businesses, redirects traffic going against our parking spots through the Fifth Street alley. This eliminates all of our designated parking and as well as our handicap location. There are also several other businesses on 4th Street, one of which I believe is speaking tonight, that will have zero ADA accessibility.
Okay. So the alley is off limits, or the alley is,
The alley is necessary for us to be open.
and the plans for 4th Street would include that portion of the alley that provides your access.
Yes, it would include, or currently, the last plans I saw sent traffic going against our parking down that alley, redirecting all traffic.
Okay. Are you here does the board of directors, you're representing the
Yes,
the
yeah.
Dalles Art Center Board of Directors?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, I'm representing the Dalles Art Center as an organization. We have very limited board of directors currently, but they are aware.
Okay. And they're supportive of your statement.
Yes. Yep. Our board president signed a previous letter that I sent to some of the city council members, as well as you, I believe.
Right.
The board is supportive of this decision. We do not have the staffing or volunteer support to remain open.
You're talking
During
about the
a-
letter from Carmen Toll?
No, that one was separate. That was from one of the artists whose exhibit opening will be gravely affected by this closure.
And that person is the president of the,
No, the letter that I sent to you was co-signed by Kristen Fix, our board president.
anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Shannon Sheets. Did I pronounce that correctly? You can pass those out if you like. Mhm.
And I'm sorry, I did not make enough copies for everyone. I thought there were just 7.
Or we can share.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Your Honorable Mayor and City Councilors, I am an attorney at Gorge Legacy Law, which is an elder law firm located at 112 West 4th Street in the Dalles. We have several concerns regarding the proposed relocation of the city festival and carnival rights. We have elderly clients who have mobility and hearing issues. They need easy access to our building, which is via our front entrance. We have an accessible entrance located at the back via an upper lot and alleyway, but our stairs are not accessible nor used by our clients and or potential clients. On November 10th, 2025, Lisa Farquharson, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce her name, from the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce sent an email requesting input for the proposed 2026-2027 Northwest Cherry Festival location. Originally, the proposal was to temporarily close 4th Street from Liberty to Washington for 8 days from Monday, April 20th, 2026 to Tuesday, April 28th. We objected to this 8-day closure due to lack of accessible entrances for our clients. Further, some of our clients have difficulty hearing and conducting telephonic appointments is problematic. On Friday, November 14th, Ms. Farquharson responded to our objections by stating, based on the responses we have received so far, which align with our own initial concerns, it is clear that a cherry festival footprint on 4th Street is not workable for the surrounding businesses. I want to reassure you that we are no longer considering 4th Street as a festival location. We are actively exploring an alternative layout that would remove the festival from 4th Street entirely. Our goal is the same as yours, to avoid negative impacts on local businesses while still preserving a longstanding community tradition. I'm not going to read the full quote because I have limited time, but I did bring a copy of my letter for everyone. In my response on the same day, I thanked her for the response and I appreciated her time and advocacy. On January 21st, 2026, we received an email from Ms. Farquharson indicating that the chamber and the city had decided to move forward hosting the Northwest Charity Festival on 4th Street.
You have 25 seconds. So
The email indicated that the closure would begin on Sunday, April 19th through April 28th. The street would be closed for 9 days. This street closure will adversely affect our business. Additionally, to protect our property, if we request fencing, it will shut off access to our building.
anybody have any questions for Shannon? Thank you very much.
May I pass mine?
Sure. Yep. Give it to the city clerk. She'll see that we get it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Judy Merrill.
Hello, everybody. Since last spring, I began noticing a very rapid increase of the use of micromobility devices such as electric bikes, scooters, self-balancing skateboards, electric personal assistance mobility devices such as Segways, and electric unicycles. Chief Neal over in Hood River told me about the electric micromobility in Oregon that DOT he went to a conference regarding this. And it's very, very insightful. I learned a lot more about more devices that are being used. I'm going to present this to you both so you can make copies of that, along with the Oregon Bicycling Manual. You can get this online if you don't want to waste paper. I'll provide these for you. This is good. There are many benefits to both individuals and communities, such as encouraging healthy movement and exercise that we all need, being outdoors, reducing vehicle miles traveled, reducing emissions that contribute to climate change, and increasing access and mobility opportunities. In addition to the benefits I and others have noted, a very rapid increase of users and bikers, both young and old, who are not following the rules of the road. Safety, traffic safety, both in the downtown corridor and outside city limits, out to the city limits. Since last spring, I have studied both Oregon and local ordinances and some other localities and states. I've attended 4 Traffic and Safety Commission meetings to share information, my concerns. Many members have expressed support to begin the process of an ordinance in the Dalles regarding this issue, along with joint community efforts and education and awareness. We all know we need to be realistic, and the police department and the city has very high priorities, much higher perhaps that you may think as this. At the last meeting on February 21st, the police officer shared he had not heard of any complaints or concerns regarding this. He suggested I share some to the department. So since then, within a week and a half time period, I have made a list. Very astute at this. And
You have 30 seconds, by the way.
oh, I'm sorry. And so, well, these would astound you and there are only no helmets, 5 kids and 7 adults, mostly on 10th Street downtown. Dan Richardson asked me to provide information to each council member, which I have done. In November, I met with the mayor and the city manager on a 1-to-1. I met with Chief Neil Oloste and an officer in Hood River, and I've met with very briefly with Tom.
Okay.
Ending, can I just?
Sure. Yeah. Quickly.
Thank you. Okay. In ending, I'd like to encourage each of you to please take the time as leaders of our community to study this subject with a goal to keep our children, adults, and the elderly and the grandchildren, both residents and tourists safe. Design an ordinance for the downtown corridor and out to the city limits. Operating rules for non-electric bicycles and electric micromobility for our community.
Okay,
Work with other communities with education and awareness
okay.
before somebody gets killed.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Merrill? Nope. Thank you, Judy.
I wish all of you best of luck.
Okay, next, Louise Lang Heinrich.
Good evening. Nice to see all of you again. It's been a while.
Did you talk into the mic, make sure the microphone's nice and close? Thank you.
So I'm here to represent my business and the other businesses between Union Court, right? First Street to Second Street. So that includes on Court and Second, businesses on both sides of the street. Let's have a show of hands from all the businesses that are impacted by this issue tonight. Quite a few here in the back. So what we're a little concerned with is that we're going to have further reduction in parking starting next Monday. It'll last for 3 months, according to the contractor, Ajax Construction. So besides First Street being closed for 18 months, we've got the 2 parking lots bounded on First. It's the basalt rock wall that's going to be rebuilt. And the contractor told me it's going to take 3 months. So the problem is this area has such a high concentration of businesses compared to some of the other parts of downtown. We have 38 businesses in that little area I mentioned, with up to 80 employees and owners. So it's always had a parking problem. I mean, I'm glad to see First Streetscape finally happening. It's been on the books for 21 years. But I'm sure during 21 years, you guys have come up with a plan to figure out the parking for us business owners, because First Street is gone. Those 2 lots that are the basalt rock walls going to be built. Contractor told me how much area he has to have for his trucks and their access. So basically behind my building, that goes away, except for there's 2 companies that might be able to get their trucks in there. And there's the city has the other lot on the other side of Washington, but that's going to be diminished. So where is it you guys are thinking that we business owners are supposed to park? Now, over the years, it's been pointed out to me, you've got the parking lot here on Third by St. Peter's Landmark. You've got the state office buildings. But I got to tell you, for us women who work into the evening, First Street was pretty scary. And for having us now to walk to these other places isn't the best solution. So Napa, for example, also has a fleet. You've seen their little cars everywhere delivering parts.
Louise, you're down to 20 seconds, so.
Thank you. So then where are they going to park their fleet? And where are those employees going to park? Napa's here tonight also. So there's some possibilities with some other little lots, maybe discount plus, but we're looking forward to your ideas for how us businesses where we can park. The other one is the pictures I showed you. And just to finish, it's the closure signs have become very confusing for our customers. So my suggestion in that picture is the first one shows you what's out there for the sidewalks, but all across the United States, as they have construction closures, they have some better ways of communicating that are clear to people driving into the area, where they're supposed to park, how they access the businesses. So let's see if we can come up with a little bit clearer signage, help our customers. It's tough economic times.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Council
I have a
Randall?
question perhaps for the city manager. Who puts these signs up? Is that the contractors or is that Public Works that puts these signs in place?
These particular signs, that's actually a great question. The contractor is responsible for putting up the road closure signs and whatnot. But to Louise's point, we had, you emailed us late last week.
Right, with
We actually-
Ajax, yeah.
Was that?
With Ajax Construction, it was a copy.
Correct. And we also got an email from the House of Alamode that had some of these really great suggestions. And, you know, Josh and I and a few other staff connected on it briefly today about looking at these different suggestions and seeing what we can implement. As you noted, this project is 2+ years or 2 years, hopefully overall. And so as we get started here and Ajax moves forward, we want to make sure that we're getting off on the right foot. And if there's some improvements that can be made, we're all ears. So it's helpful to get this kind of feedback. You know, some of the work that we've done to date is, as you know, we pave those sunken parking lots. One of them is the Commodores, more or less their parking
Right.
lot. And then there's the new paved lot on the other side of Eric Gleason's building. The First Street parking lot is still also open, and we removed some of the islands in the First Street parking lot.
So where's that?
The big public parking lot that we've always had near the transportation building between
Behind
Washington and
Clint's?
yeah, the one behind Clint's. That's the north central parking lot, if you will. It has the same kind of impacts along that frontage there, but we removed some of the center aisles so traffic flow can continue to go through those First Street parking lots. The lot to the east of the transportation building is closed, but the larger lot is open. We had a open house about the projects late last fall, October last fall, to review some of these impacts. But as I said, it's a 2-year timeline for the project. And so these kinds of suggestions in order to mitigate the impact to the downtown businesses, we're all ears. So we'll review what you and others have sent and get back to you.
That'd be great to hear, because I know next week Ajax is going to start. Right.
Thank you. Nate Turner. Pardon me? You're good? Okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes the audience participation segment of the meeting. Yeah, my understanding is your item is going to be on the agenda. Your item is on the agenda. It's 11A. No, it's not. It's 11B. Yes. Well, okay, it doesn't have anything to do with ICE or the resolution we passed, anything like that? Why don't you come forward? Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and your address, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
Jenna Diley from the Dalles, Oregon.
Right.
And yeah, and the reason I was dismayed to find out that the first speaker was not responded to, because that's why I'm here, is because the first time I came here, you also didn't call my name, you know, and of course I'm sure that was an honest mistake. You know, no, that's fine. I'm just saying, but then the last time I submitted a question in writing and turned it into your clerk, and now it's 4 weeks later and I didn't get a response. So I'm here to ask again, if that piece of paper that you wrote about the resolution, and asking, and I don't know about what's going on here because you guys didn't respond to me. Is that piece of paper, if your family was held in detention and you could not get them an attorney, if you could not get them medication and they were afraid and suffering, is that all each of you would do? Now, I would like to tell you more about myself. I told you last time that I'm from Oregon, I'm from the area. I want to tell you why I'm so concerned. And I grew up on the Grapevine Christian church scene with my dad while he walked with the cross in the 80s and 90s. Maybe you read about him in the newspaper. But while I was at home, I was being tortured and sexually assaulted by my brother. For 5 years, this went on. And every single day, I suffered the physical, emotional, and mental ramifications of torture, sexual assault, and rape. So I am now on Social Security disability. I'm not even able to go to work. And since I have lived in fear, since I have heard reports that men and women are being sexually assaulted in ICE detention centers. So when I hear that they're operating in the town that I live in, I need an answer, and you guys didn't answer me. So I'm here today.
You've got 30 seconds.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I am here today to state once again that I require an answer as a reasonable accommodation for my disability. The questions I just stated to you right now on tape, on record, are my questions. I never received an answer. I would like an answer this time. Thank you.
Okay. I can only say that I'm not going to speak for the rest of the council. I'll just speak for myself. I have your question here in writing that you submitted to the city clerk on the 17th. And basically, you'd like to know how we're protecting our community from the illegal actions and fear caused by ICE. I think that that assumes certain things in your question, but I'll just answer it this way, as I think the city council passed a resolution back on January 12th, which I think is our statement of concern. We started an internal committee here at the city, which is also in the resolution. The staff has communicated with other city leaders in Oregon, which is also in the resolution. We've established partnerships with One Community Health and Nextdoor with a focus on families and families with children as it relates to this subject. We have considerable staff outreach and information sharing throughout the community that they've participated in. And again, I'll just allude to the resolution that we passed on January 12th, which I think was passed unanimously by the city council, 5-0, which I think answers your question to the best of our ability among the five of us. Anybody else wants to cut? Sir, excuse, yeah. Mhm. Okay, your new questions are going to have to be submitted and we'll have to take those under advisement. So, yeah. I don't want to get into a verbal,
I will take the video recording of my question and submit it back to your office to be answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to respond?
If I may, I think the clarification there is we'd like the questions submitted in writing.
Right? So, on what good faith do I have that if I go through the trouble of writing it down, that you're going to answer?
I think it's the city council. It's up to them, and it's up to don't sir. If you interrupt me again, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Okay, I'm telling you now that I have answered your question to the best of my ability. I'm not speaking for the rest. If they choose to answer, that's up to them. So that's all I can say. It's their prerogative.
Respond to a statement like,
Are you talking to me?
Just Mr. Cleaves is okay. Yeah. I think if you're hoping to achieve resolution or get to where you're going to, submitting your questions in writing would be helpful. I understand that I understand what
first time I came in, what good faith do I have that you're going to answer my question if I go through the trouble of writing it down? I already did it last time. You guys didn't answer. You didn't call me the first time. And so I'm asking you right now to your face in front of everyone, on what good faith do I have assurance that if I go through the trouble of writing down the statement and bringing it in back into you guys, that you're actually going to answer me?
The good faith comes with every council member and myself will, in good conscience, answer you to the best of our ability, and we're just going to have to leave it at that. That's your opinion, okay? No.
You just answered now. You didn't answer within the last 4 weeks.
Okay, I'm going to conclude this discussion. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 7, City Manager's Report. Mr. Cleaves.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few items for the council this evening. We are in the middle of our budget process, as well as our annual auditing process, as well as our SEIU union negotiations. And so it has been a very busy month over the last 4 weeks or so, or longer, I should say. The Federal Street Plaza has been put out to bid, and we're hoping to bring back to City Council for consideration and award at the April 13th meeting. The First and Weber Street project is underway. That's the infrastructure project between the cruise ship dock and Weber Street in front of the Public Works Yard, as well as the First Street streetscaping project, as we heard a moment ago. One of the things I wanted to mention here related to all these infrastructure projects, and as the council knows, we've started up a watch video series. What's happening at City Hall? Thank you very much. That's Tuesday morning, a brief 1-minute video recap of each of these city council meetings. In the off weeks, when we don't have a city council meeting, Amy and I will be hoping to spin up kind of an infrastructure update series there to, again, continue to push information out about what's going on. I passed along information to the council about Q-Life and their very historic, if you will, grant award. About $15.2 million through the NTIA BEAD program, Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Fund. So more updates as that moves forward. It's about 924 homes outside of the city limits, but Q-Life is set to serve the northern half of Wasco County and beyond. We had some meetings with the leadership team from Northern Wasco County PUD, as well as the city of Sandy, the city manager, or myself and the public works director, and some other staff have been meeting with some of our partners to explore some of these generational infrastructure projects that we'll be working on, most notably the replacement of the water treatment plant and the transmission lines. The city of Sandy has been going through WIFIA debt financing. Actually just signed debt financing not too long ago, so wanted to kind of pick their brain and learn about the process as we start to get underway here. We have Gorge Regional City Manager luncheon this Friday, or this Wednesday, I should say, as well as we had a meeting last week of what's called the Newish City Managers Group as part of the Oregon City County Managers Association. Abigail Elder from the city of Hood River really kind of started this process. I kind of help co-host when I can, and we had a really interesting conversation around financing and forecasting. I attended the Merkley Town Hall and followed up with their staffers specifically about House Bill 655, introduced by Congressman Bentz to transfer land in our watershed to support the raising of the height of Crow Creek Dam. And we have a community outreach team meeting tomorrow to discuss an upcoming trip to DC and whether or not there's interest or a need or benefit for city representatives to go and advocate in support of that bill, amongst a few other policies. Those are the items I have for you this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? Just one on your recaps that you do by video. What kind of response or hits have you gotten on that?
We get the most traffic when the police department shares them for us.
What is that?
But it really varies. Depends on the topic. Do you want to speak to maybe some of the?
We are getting in the thousands on the lower end, 5,000 or so hits on a video. But when the police department shares, we'll get in the tens of thousands sometimes.
Is that good? Okay. Yeah, I think it's tremendous. I mean, I thought you get 10 or 12, to tell you the truth. So yeah, that's a great response. That's awesome. Anybody else? Okay, let's go to city council reports. We'll start on my right with Councilor McLaughlin.
I attended a KODL coffee break along with the mayor, last Tuesday? And also attended Urban Renewal Agency that evening. I was gone Friday for the Airport Commission meeting. I was in McMinnville attending a conference for Lions Club. And that's it.
Council Ring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, I was also at the Urban Renewal Agency Board meeting on Tuesday, December 17th. I did not get to go to the CGCC technology open house on Friday, the 20th, but I've already seen the college president in passing, and I'm making arrangements actually to go, and I'd encourage others to do that as well. Actually, a part of a grant opportunity that they got to expand their technology lab and whatnot. So they have additional metallurgy technologies like 3D printing in metal, which is pretty unique. So I highly recommend that you get a chance to check it out if you can. And then other than that, I had a brief online meeting with our economic development officer and Councilor Richardson in preparation for urban renewal.
Thank you. Councilor Randall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On January 28th, I attended the Historic Landmarks Commission where we reviewed our goals. We'll take that up again this coming Wednesday. February 3rd, meeting with the local Public Safety Coordinating Committee. And on February 5th, I logged into a webinar on Drinking Water Source Protection Grant Program for some information on that. February 6th, attended a town hall with Senator Jeff Merkley. And on February 20th, I did go to the ITAC open house, which is the Industrial Training and Assessment Center at the Columbia Gorge Community College. It was very fascinating. I took my grandson with me. Some amazing stuff they have there. Cutting edge technology. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councilor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last Tuesday, I attended, in fact, chaired the Urban Renewal Board meeting previously referenced, and I just want to say for those at home or paying, watching this later, that Urban Renewal continues to diversify its incentive options and is launching a $7,500 storefront like a refresh or rehab grant. It's a very modest amount of paperwork involved. I would say if you own or have a business downtown and have thoughts to do any cleaning up or painting or repairs out front, that's a great opportunity for that. I watched the community affairs program last Thursday with Superintendent Bernal. I attended the Senator Merkley's town hall. This morning, I attended the Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation board meeting, and they continue to do some really amazing work at quite a number of locations around the gorge, including in the Dalles. I will just note that they have about 130 new units under construction in various projects, and about another 235 in sort of the feasibility and study phase, including I think about 75 in the Dalles. I will say I had a new experience for me, which was a personal water leak, and city staff responded well. I don't think they really knew my position. It shouldn't matter. I don't think it does. They were very polite and professional and helped me figure out what was going on and why I was using so darn much water. And last but not least, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I do want to note since Director or Executive Director Naramore, not sure what your title is, Leslie. Director Naramore is here, but I do want to note that Bread and Blessings continues its good work, and now, if I understand correctly, has a new home at the Glory Center, and I hope and trust that will meet many needs and be continue to be operated really professionally.
Councilor Runyon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As many of you know, I've been on vacation basically the last week and a half, and spent a lot of time in the last few days going through our packet and so forth. And among those, driving around the community to review the street situation and with the construction and all that. I was doing quite a bit of that today. I met with the planning director this morning on several items, a couple of which are on our agenda later, and also briefly with our city manager. And that's really kind of it. I've been off for a while.
Thank you.
Mayor Mays.
Councilor McLaughlin.
I have some information that after the issue with the ICE arrest at Home Depot, I did make contact with the family, and I had a meeting with Mr. Sandoval's daughter and his brother. I did some research, so I offered some guidance as far as, legal. They had already hired an attorney. So after the meeting, I asked her if she would please contact me and let me know what's going on. So today I received a message. He says he's okay and he's able to call us, and we have a video call scheduled for tomorrow. So they're in touch with him in the ICE Center, which is in Kansas City, Missouri, is where he's located right now. He's in a county jail called Greene County Jail. And here's the latest that I need to share. My dad's attorney just called us to let us know he was denied bond and that this was standard, and we can try for habeas corpus in Missouri. And good morning. We saw my dad has court scheduled for March 2nd at 1 p.m. Missouri time. And the attorney told my dad this is where they're going to fight for bail. So bail means that if he's granted bail, the family would pay the bail and he would be dismissed and returned. If not, I don't know what the outcome will be, but probably deportation. So that's everything I know.
Thank you. Item 9 is the consent agenda. Items of a routine and non-controversial nature are placed on the consent agenda to allow the city council to spend its time and energy on the more important items and issues. Any councilor may request an item be pulled from the consent agenda and be considered separately. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be placed on the agenda at the end of the action items section. Tonight we have, with the amendment, 5 items on the consent agenda. First is the approval of the January 26th city council meeting minutes. Second is a resolution concurring with my reappointment of Donna Lawrence and Forrest Ercole to the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee. Third is the awarding of a contract for the 2026 sanitary sewer lining project. Fourth is approval of an amendment to the airport management agreement. And finally, the one we added tonight is approving the surplus of an airport vehicle. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Was that Councilor Ring?
I'll second.
Yeah, Councilor Randall made the motion. Councilor Ring seconded to approve the consent agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 10A is an ordinance for the adoption of the employment opportunities analysis and the employment buildable lands inventory and amendments to Goal 9 of the city's comprehensive plan, land use plan. Mr. Chandler. Oh, am I supposed to read this first?
Yep. Yes, please.
Okay. Now's the time specified for the city council to conduct a legislative public hearing to consider the following matter. Consideration of both comprehensive plan amendment application number 58-25, amending Goal 9, parentheses, economic development, end parentheses, of the Dalles Comprehensive Land Use Plan and adoption of General Ordinance number 26-1425. An ordinance for the adoption of the employment opportunities analysis and employment buildable lands inventory. Adoption does not rezone property, expand the urban growth boundary, or authorize specific development. This hearing requires the city council to consider explanation of the relevant criteria, standards, policies, and laws, a statement of basic facts relied upon in rendering the decision, and the evidence in the record. The criteria on which the council will base its consideration of this matter are found in the city's comprehensive plan, including Goal 9, the Dalles Municipal Code Title 10, statewide planning Goal 9, and its implementing rules and the staff report. Anyone who wishes to testify must be recognized by me before testifying. When I recognize you, please proceed to the microphone and state your name and mailing address for the record. The hearing is also required to be recorded. Generally, the public hearing procedure will go as follows. One is prior to the public hearing, we will begin with a staff report and any questions the council may have for the staff. Second, we will then ask for testimony from anyone who wishes to offer relevant testimony or ask relevant questions on this matter, limited to no more than 3 minutes per testifier. Third, after all public testimony, the staff will have an opportunity to respond. When this process has been concluded, I will close the public testimony and the council will deliberate toward a decision. To expedite the hearing, councilors may ask questions of persons as they testify and may exclude or limit cumulative, repetitious, or immaterial testimony consistent with the city council rules. During the public hearing, some important standards apply. First, if you testify, please address your testimony to the applicable criteria or other criteria which the person believes applies to the decision from the comprehensive plan or the Dalles Municipal Code, Title 10. Second, failure to raise an issue with enough detail to allow the counselors and the parties an opportunity to respond to that issue prohibits an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. And third, failure to participate in this public hearing, either orally or in writing, precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals. These are the rules. Are there any questions? Okay, it's time for some disclosures. Do any members of the council wish to make any conflict of interest disclosure or abstain from participating or voting on this matter because of possible financial gain resulting from the legislative action? No. Anybody? Everyone is saying no. Okay, and with that, we are going to open the public hearing. The public hearing is now open. Can we please have a staff report?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Mays. Joshua Chandler, Community Development Department. So I am joined this evening by Matt Hasty and Jessa Miller with MIG, who've been our consultants throughout this process. Our staff report really is a summary of, excuse me, our slides coming up are really kind of a summary of the staff report here. To avoid some redundancy and cut down on overall time, I'm ultimately going to turn this over to Matt and Jessa to make that presentation. But I did wanted to just touch on a couple things here. This project was discussed at the February 6th Planning Commission meeting just a couple weeks ago. From that, the Planning Commission did recommend a few minor changes to a couple of our comprehensive plan amendments. Those have been noted in your staff report, and Matt and Jessa will touch on those a little bit. I also received comments and questions from Councilors Runyon and Richardson. Do appreciate that. We'll touch on those a little bit when we follow up this discussion. Maybe once hopefully we don't, may not cover those going forward. But there are also, potential changes that we'll touch on. I know that we'll need to make a slight modification to one of the documents here. There's a repetitious paragraph that we did notice here. Councilor Runyon actually recognized this at the end. So it'll just be really a clerical change that we'll be making following adoption in the event that occurs this evening. Without further ado, I'll turn this over to Matt and Jessa, and they'll walk us through the presentation.
All right. Thanks, Josh. Thanks everybody for having us on the screen tonight. I will share my screen. Hopefully that'll be okay. All right. Can y'all see that okay? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Good to go. Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Jessa and I will kind of tag team this. I'll start out, just talk briefly about sort of the project background, objectives, and overview. I'll present the second item, the employment and land demand analysis. Jessa will talk about the updated buildable lands inventory, and then I'll review the proposed comprehensive plan goals, policies, and implementation measures, as well as Josh said, I'll touch on the proposed revisions to those from the Planning Commission, and then happy to take questions and comments. So I will just jump right into it. And I'll also just say some of this is going to be a repeat of information we presented at the work session with y'all in Planning Commission. So, pardon the repeats, but wanted to provide a fairly complete presentation for this public hearing, but I'll try to go through it. I won't belabor the points here. So just kind of what is an economic opportunities analysis? It's identifying major types of employment within the city and trends, both past and future. It identifies the number of sites needed to accommodate future projected employment growth and the amount of land. It also summarizes the supply of buildable land and then compares those two things, the supply and the demand, and can draw some conclusions about that or findings. And then, as Josh noted, and is noted in your ordinance, the proposal is to update the Chapter 9 or Goal 9, excuse me, of your comprehensive plan to reflect what's come out of the EOA work. This is just sort of summarizing some of those same steps and just showing you sort of what the calendar looked like for the project. So we got started back in April of 2025, got really a lot of the kind of the underlying work done by kind of midsummer. And then since that time, we've been updating those documents based on comments from our advisory committee as well as you all, and then having work session and public hearing with the Planning Commission and now you. So we're near the tail end of the process here. So why are we doing this? I'd say, you know, sort of first and foremost, in a way, the current comprehensive plan and EOA that was last adopted was adopted quite some time ago. So the information in your comprehensive plan related to this topic and the previous EOA are really pretty outdated in terms of the data and the findings and recommendations. So they don't really set a current foundation for that. So the intent really here is to provide a better foundation of data and particularly goals and policies to guide future decision-making by you all, including how you allocate resources and how you proceed with other related planning efforts. And sort of towards that end, be a foundation for shorter term annual economic development strategies and work plans. So it's really intended to provide the basis for all that. And then also informs review of future development applications to make sure that they are consistent with this updated set of comprehensive plan goals and policies. So just a little bit of history on this. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but as I said, it's been a while since you last updated your EOA and that part of your comprehensive plan. So 2007, so coming up on close to 20 years, started this process back in 2019 and spent some time working on it then, but did not ultimately adopt the EOA and the comprehensive plan amendments at that time based on some concerns about the findings, particularly related to the buildable lands inventory. So kind of fast forward to now, we've really needed to update some of the data that was used in that previous work so that it is current and still relevant, and to reflect changes in the supply of land within the Dalles over the last several years. So, you know, the current process is intended to use that updated data. And I will also just note, and I think Jess will probably talk about it too, that we've made a lot of changes to the buildable lands inventory in particular, based on a pretty careful review by folks on our advisory committee. So again, you know, the goal is for this to be a more accurate foundation for more detailed future economic development action planning. So just in terms of the refined forecast of future employment, as well as the related land needs, a few things I'll note, really, that your economy has diversified since the previous EOA was adopted, and since 2000, you have seen your growth rate has recovered since the pandemic. You've seen an annual growth rate of about 1.2% since then. The region, per the forecast from the Oregon Department of Employment, your region is forecasted to grow at just under 1% per year through 2033. You have seen growth in wages above that growth in employment over the last 10 years, so that's good news. And you've got a relatively young median age in the county and trending downwards, also good news in terms of your your base of employees. And through 2033, the prediction is that you'll have about 550 new jobs in various different types of occupations. There's a couple of charts here just kind of showing, the one on the left is just showing which parts of your economy have grown, or in some cases, lost some employees. And this is showing not the Dalles, but the region, and then the state and the country. I will not spend a lot of time talking about that, but this is one of the charts in the documents you've got. And then on the right, is sort of a graphic that's showing you the different types of industries regionally where you've seen growth before, through, and after the pandemic. So we looked at these as potential future target industries or growth industries. And I will say we didn't kind of zero in or focus down on a subset of these in the EOA. We really just talked about, there's a lot of different sectors of the economy that provide opportunities for growth, and this is meant to kind of show what some of those are. So as part of this process, we looked at some different growth scenarios, and so there were 3 of them. And this chart on the left shows those. Scenario 1, the first one, assumed a pretty low rate of growth. It assumed the amount of growth in employment projected by the state. And then the medium one assumed that you address some of your housing needs and you see a higher rate of growth. And the third is really, I'll call it kind of an aspirational growth trend, and assumes that you grow at a higher rate. And that ended up being the identified or sort of preferred scenario that we then use as the basis to project both future jobs and also land needs associated with those jobs. And so that's what is shown on the chart on the right, is the forecasted number of new jobs over the next 20 years. And I know that's a really hard table to read. I'll sort of go to the main point there, which is the expectation of seeing just under 2,900 additional jobs over the next 20 years in the Dalles. And so then that was used to forecast land need. We did this in a couple of different ways. One was to come up with just an aggregate amount of needed land over the next 20 years that assumes average employment densities or number of employees per acre in different kind of very basic categories of jobs, and then multiplies that out by the number of employees in those sectors. That comes out to a little under 150 needed net buildable acres. But what we also looked at, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later as well, is we looked at how many sites of different sizes would we anticipate you would need to meet different types of employment needs within the Dalles. So that ends up showing a need for, frankly, quite a bit more land. And I would say ultimately, that is basically saying that really probably 146 acres is not enough. And you're going to need more land to be able to have the number of sites needed to accommodate different types of employers and industries needs. So it's going to be somewhere in between. This is a pretty tough thing, frankly, to calculate with a lot of precision. And so we do have some caveats about that in the report. And so what, I would say is your ultimate land need falls somewhere in between those two sets of numbers would be the way I would think about it. So I'm going to stop there, and Jess is going to take over for a little while, and then I'll jump back in a bit.
Great. Thank you, Matt, and good evening, everyone. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes in slides diving into the second main phase of this process, which was the Refined Employment Buildable Land Inventory, or the BLI, which looks at the supply of employment land in the Dalles and how this compares to the employment demand that Matt just summarized for us. So to start, this process refines the BLI from the 2020 Economic Opportunity Analysis, like Matt mentioned, to reflect new conditions such as recent development, tax law changes, new constraints such as the city's new stream corridor buffers, and updated FEMA floodplain data, and multiple rounds of staff, public advisory committee, and elected official feedback to ensure an accurate reflection of developable employment lands in the city. The BLI was composed of 5 main steps, which are summarized in detail in the BLI memo included in today's meeting packet. These steps include determining land type for all tax lots in the Dalles to focus in on employment lands, identifying and calculating constraints such as steep slopes, floodplain, wetlands, stream corridors, easements, and so on, classifying land by development status, inventorying those results to calculate developable employment land, and then lastly, comparing land need or demand with the supply of buildable land identified by the BLI. So as I just mentioned, one of the main steps, oops, Matt, can you go back one slide? Thank you. As I just mentioned, one of the main steps of the BLI was to classify the city's employment land by development status. And the BLI includes 5 different land classifications, including development, which includes sites with improvements and that have little to no additional capacity, vacant sites, so those that have minimal to no physical improvements, partially vacant sites, so those with some improvements but still enough capacity for additional development, committed sites, so those that are either vacant or partially vacant, but they are reserved or committed to non-employment uses, or they cannot be developed for an employment use during the planning period. One example of this would be federally owned properties in the city, such as the U.S. Postal Service properties. Exhibit D in your meeting packet also summarizes all of the committed sites within the BLI for your reference to see what those are. Then lastly, we have constrained sites, which are those sites that are completely constrained by specific features or hazards, and therefore have 0 unconstrained acreage, resulting in no developable employment land. So I already went through this to an extent, but this slide further breaks down the methodology that was used for the BLI. So we started with all the land in the urban growth boundary and removed land zoned for residential and other non-employment uses to get the city's total employment lands. From this, we then remove land that is developed or committed for public facilities or other uses. And then from that, we remove constrained land as well as land needed for streets and infrastructure to land at the city's net buildable acres of employment land or the employment land supplied. And then these next few slides provide a series of maps that will further walk us through this process. So first here on this slide, we have a map of the city's zoning, which informed what was identified as employment lands, which are shown on the next map. This map shows employment lands in blue, residential lands in yellow, and then other lands in gray. So we focused in on those sites identified in blue that are largely along the I-84 corridor and along the Columbia River. This map then shows the development constraints that were removed to calculate the city's unconstrained employment land. So in purple, we have the city's stream corridor 50-foot buffer. In kind of a powder blue, we have wetlands. In the orange, we have steep slopes, so those slopes that are greater than 25%. In the bright blue, we have BPA rights of way. And then lastly, we have in that seafoam green, the FEMA flood hazard areas. And this was a layer that was updated for this process since the last employment analysis. Lastly, this map then shows how the city's employment land was classified, with pink as those committed sites, so those sites that were not incorporated into this analysis, blue for constrained sites, orange for developed sites, yellow for partially vacant sites, and then lastly, green for vacant sites. So once all this mapping was completed and the sites were classified, we summarized the aggregate land findings. This slide and the table on it shows the gross and net developable acres of employment land within the Dalles broken down by zone. I'm not going to go into each of the zones, but this is included in your packet. But it shows that there's an estimated 262.5 gross acres of vacant or partially vacant employment land in the Dalles. The gross acreage also accounts for a reduction in 10 acres of available land on Google-owned sites based on the lower assumed employment density that is expected on those. We then from this calculated net acreage, and as a result, there's approximately 204.8 acres available for employment land after accounting for existing development on partially vacant land and set-asides for infrastructure and setbacks on vacant land. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Matt, who's just going to talk through some of the main takeaways from this, as well as the demand for and need for different site sizes.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, one of the things we did in addition to looking at just sort of aggregate land need and aggregate land supply, we looked at the supply of and need for properties in different site sizes or ranges of sites. So that's what this table is basically showing you. And it's saying that you have some sites or you have sites available in some of these categories, not all of them, but you have a deficit of sites in all of these size categories. So despite the fact that when you look at kind of that aggregate land demand and supply, it looks like you've got kind of a net surplus. You really don't in terms of the number of needed sites in these different size categories. So I'm just going to read kind of this key takeaway from that comparison of the need and supply of sites for different employment types. It says, while there may be enough acres of buildable land to meet the projected need when viewed as a single combined acreage number based on aggregate needs analysis, there are not enough sites across all site size categories, and as a result, not enough land in the UGB to address the need for sites in the needed sizes and configurations. The lack of sites over 20 acres in size, in particular, is a detriment to business recruitment and expansion across industrial sectors, as has been noted during this process by members of our project advisory committee. So that's consistent with what we heard from folks during that process. So that's kind of the one of the key takeaways there. I'll talk now a little bit about the proposed updates to the comprehensive plan. So kind of this is just sort of a summary of the foundation of that. You've got the economic opportunities analysis that describes all the things we've just been talking about. And then a set of comprehensive plan policies that are based on the EOA. And there are policies there that are intended to designate an adequate number of employment sites as well as needed public facilities and transportation facilities, and then implementation policies and measures that are intended to address the specific policies as well. So there's a kind of a couple of things that are being proposed. One is to update adopt an updated EOA that includes the components that are listed here and that we've been talking about, and then to update the Goal 9 narrative, which basically just summarizes the information in the EOA documents, and then to reorganize and update the goals and the policies and the implementation strategies, which I really have to give the credit for that work to your staff. Jake and Josh did a really great job of looking at the old policies and goals and implementation strategies and coming up with, frankly, a more complete set of new policies. They changed the structure of how those are organized and really tried to make sure that it's reflecting, both what's in the EOA, but just where as a community you want to be going in the future. So I'm going to talk about that just a little bit, but I won't go through all of those. So we've got a set of 7 goals, and then under each goal, there's a set of policies. Under each of those policies, there's a set of implementation measures. And so I won't read the list of goals here, but I will just give you examples of a couple of these. So for instance, goal 1 is to expand and diversify the economic base of the Dalles. And then one of the policies under that goal is to protect and plan for long-term industrial land supply. And then there are several implementation measures associated with that particular policy. I will not read them all here, but they're really all about preserving key areas and then making sure that you do have a strategy for replacing them as they are developed over time, and ensuring you just have enough industrial land to meet those future needs. So that's one example. Second example, this is goal 4, is to ensure economic development readiness and resilience. One of the policies there is to make it easier to develop in the Dalles. And then there are several implementation measures under that policy related to streamlining permitting processes, providing assistance for development of catalytic sites, those kind of sites that can have an impact on surrounding sites or the economy as a whole, and updating the city's resources on the web, on the internet. Policy 4.2 is another example, planning for long-term resilience and adaptability. And then there are several implementation measures under that policy related to addressing hazards, encouraging redevelopment strategies that incorporate infrastructure layouts and long-term adaptability, and just monitoring progress on how you're meeting your economic development needs and goals. So you see that sort of throughout this kind of structure and these types of policies and implementation measures sort of throughout that updated section of the comp plan. So just there were several suggested changes to these from the Planning Commission. They did not identify any specific changes to the narrative or the economic opportunities analysis reports, but they did suggest several changes to the goals and policies. So I'll just note those. I think there's 4 of them on these next slides, the slide in the next few. So under Goal 1 and Policy 1.2, they suggested adding another implementation measure. It's the last one here that says support creation and retention of business support services that serve a diverse range of businesses. So that was one suggested change. The next one was under Goal 2, which is grow and attract a skilled workforce. And under Policy 2.1, they suggested including in this first implementation measure, including Columbia Gorge Community College in that particular strategy or measure. Under Goal 2 and Policy 2.2, there was a implementation measure that said continue multi-partner efforts to relocate the hospital to a more central location. And they recommended adding some a little more to that to also say and support redevelopment of the existing site if the facility is relocated. So don't just relocate it, but then figure out what to do with that existing site. And then lastly, under Goal 5 and Policy 5.3, there's an implementation measure here that says, or it without the change, it says collaborate with Google, CGCC, and STEM organizations to support applied research and tech workforce pipelines. And the suggestion was to broaden that statement to say not just Google, but also other information and technology companies, and then the other kind of partnering folks that were already listed there. So those were the changes that the Planning Commission recommended to what we put in front of them at our hearing earlier this month. And I will stop there and just see if you have any questions or comments. And let me know if I should, I guess I'll keep this up in case you want me to go back to any of those previous slides, but happy to stop sharing if that's better.
Okay, does the city council have any questions? I'm asking that we're not here for deliberation at this point. That comes a little later in the meeting. Does anybody on the council have any questions for Matt or Josh? Okay, I do.
So we had if this is appropriate time to do it, or if we do it during deliberation, on the last slide, I do believe, that 5.3, there was, one of your board members recommended with the revision there, collaborating with Google instead of specific to Google. I think this could be modified for something for your consideration. Collaborate with information and technology companies, CGCC, and STEM organizations.
Take it.
Okay. Yeah. Councilor Runyon.
So, it was 2007 when this was last updated. So over the next 20 some years, there's going to be a lot of changes locally. There are already more technology companies and individuals in this area than there were 20 years ago. Google, obviously, the largest one. But I just hesitate because of another subject we have later about naming a company, naming a business inside of resolutions and whatnot that are for the general good. So on page 5 of 6, page 57 of 260 on your packet, they revised a sentence, but effectively left it the same, it looked like. And what I would do on 5.3 on the revision is just this is my suggestion only, and, we get down to deliberations and things, I'd be glad to make an amendment if people feel like it's worthwhile. If not, I'll let it go. But I would change it, instead of naming a specific company, research and review with local information and technology companies, CGCC, and STEM organizations. We don't know what's going to be here or not here in 20 years, the next time we update this, and it just seems silly to name a specific organization to me. So that was my thought, and we can talk about that later in deliberations or what have you. That was one. The other one that I brought forward with no big fanfare of this has to be, is that the page that 3 of 27, 82 of 260, and it's the recent economic history of the area, and it's totally been crossed out. Obviously, it's very outdated from 20 years ago, and the businesses, some of them have come and gone, whatnot. I think there's a value to having a history updated, shortened maybe, doesn't need to be a complete page, but updated to current endeavors that have occurred. And it's helpful not only to citizens who may take the time to read these documents, but also to city councils and planning commissions who come along into our purview years from now. We're all gone, and there are new councilors here, city managers, planning directors, what have you, to have that recent history still there that shows what has gone on in the last decade or two. Again, it doesn't need to be as wordy and long as it is, and I'd be glad to help with it. I've already made that gesture to Josh, but he's pretty capable of stuff. But I'd just like to see that some of that updated and retained.
Okay, I take it you wanted, we don't have to go through it again under deliberation, but this is more for the
Giving
deliberation.
you an overview from planning directors.
Right. Okay. Any questions for the staff or the consultant? I have one issue here, or one question that it relates to Josh's staff report on page 54, second paragraph down. And Matt, I probably direct this question to you since you were involved with the latest effort. I just want to quote the first two sentences. The updated EOA identifies land needed to accommodate projected industrial and other employment growth over a 20-year horizon, consistent with Goal 9. This is I think deserves some attention here. While the city last adopted an EOA in 2007, with updates in 2011, subsequent analyses were not adopted and relied on data that is no longer current. So I think I know the answer to the question I'm going to ask, but I think it's important for the council to thoroughly understand why the answer is what I think it's going to be. And that is, when did we last discuss this building lands inventory? And was it 2022? Is that close?
Correct.
2000. Yeah. Okay. And back then, the methodology that you used to in your report was the methodology was consistent with guidelines set forth by the Department of Land Conservation and Development. Is that true?
I think it's true.
Back then, is that still relevant?
I believe it's still true. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this is where I think this is a key point here, and that is that the last study counted the land that was purchased and occupied by Google as being developable, which we took a lot of exception to, but you maintained it that it had to go in the report because that was the guidelines set forth by DLCD. And as a result of that, we had a lot of debate and discussion about that. And as it turned out, back in 2022, these reports in this plan were not adopted by the city council because of that issue. And I want to make sure this council understands what the issue is here, and that is that the Columbia River Gorge Commission could use this report and did use the report as a reason not to allow the city and the county to the opportunity to expand our urban growth boundary. And that is why some people took exception to the report back in 2022, is that it counted property that was owned and occupied by Google when we didn't think it should count. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. And that is the key to this is, and again, the phrase from Josh's staff report says that relied on data that is no longer current, meaning that the status of that Google property has changed now
Correct.
3 years later.
Yep. As well as many others. Yep.
Right. Okay. So I think that's an important distinction. And I wanted to make sure that those questions I had were clarified and answered. And I appreciate Josh and Matt, you're answering that question. So, okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. With that, last call for questions. Okay. Does anyone from the public wish to offer relevant testimony or ask relevant questions on this matter for up to 3 minutes? If so, please state your name and address for the record. Come forward if you would like to testify. Anybody? Yes, come forward, please. You're going to have to repeat your name and address for the record.
Wieslung Heinrich, 107 East 2nd Street, the Dalles, Oregon. Reading through this, I was very excited to see the acknowledgement of regional economic development. That's an idea that I sort of brought out way back in 2009. So I'm so glad that it's finally being acknowledged. What I'm seeing here with what's become Goal 9 is becoming totally land-based. To me, I see it as an argument to change the urban growth boundary, which you had just mentioned also, Mayor. So the old concept or intent of Goal 9, as was sort of mentioned here on page 62, that it emphasized family, wage, employment, and so on. And they said that now in the new one, they're going to have some of these intentions go forward. So I'm not quite sure how you're going to be looking at salaries and jobs. So the question I have, and I didn't see this, and maybe it's somewhere, I'm totally missing it, is where's the economic analysis, the cost benefit analysis of a development coming in? And you need to find out if this development is going to give you net job gains, job losses, the impact to the infrastructure. So when we had a situation back in 2008 to 2010 with a lot of public hearings with a big potential development, we brought forth this Goal 9 in terms of looking at the economics of the project. And the council at that time wouldn't allow us to talk about the economics. And in fact, the city attorney at that time said that this is aspirational and therefore just a little guideline, but doesn't mean anything about economic analysis. So once again, my question is, what is or where is the actual requirement when a developer comes in to do some economic analysis? Because after that 2 years of hearing, when it was decided to approve that project, one of the city council members stated that this is going to be the economic engine for the Dalles, which hasn't happened yet. So council members also asked me afterwards saying, we don't have the tools to assess these projects that come to us. So I gave them an example at that time of what Maine, and I just looked it up real quick. Maine still has it on their statutes.
You got 30
state
seconds.
level.
Please.
And so at the time, city council directed this to the planning commission, and I believe the time frame is April of 2010. As I went in front of planning commission to talk about these, they approved that staff needed to research these economic analysis tools. I have no idea what's happened since then. My assumption is it's been shelved, but I would hope that we would look at this so you have the tools to actually look at projects coming in to determine if it's worthy of our community, if it's going to give us the gain of jobs.
Okay. I really, you're talking about a time period when none of us were here, and I'm at a loss as to what project you're talking about.
Walmart.
Okay.
That's a pretty big one.
Yeah, it is. And So your question is, do we have the tools to be able to evaluate projects like Walmart?
Yeah, any big
Become-
project, say even for example, if Google builds another plant or some other corporation comes in, it's usually at a bigger level, 100,000 square feet. So you look at the economic analysis so you can decide, is this something we should bring in to our community, right? Will it give us net job gains? What's the cost on our infrastructure? So I would think you'd want those tools. And so I don't see it in here. This is just land inventory.
All I can say is the only example I can point to since I've been mayor is Google. The 2 new data centers that were negotiated in 2021. We did quite an extensive analysis on what you're bringing up. And those are all public documents, I believe, on what we expected to receive and the job creation, et cetera. So I do think, I can't speak for 2010. None of us were here then, but I do think we have the tools to effectively evaluate economic development projects in the future. Did you want to add anything?
Well, I think one of the
You were here then. I mean, you weren't here then, but you were
Yeah, no,
part of the.
I think one of the elements there when you have a potential development come in or a business come in is whether or not they're looking for certain incentives from a city or another local agency, but be it a vertical housing zone or the enterprise zone or whatever it may be. That's certainly something that's a request or a dialogue that they have with the city in terms of what we're offering or what we can approve with what they're bringing to the table. If they're not seeking an economic incentive of that nature, a lot of that review takes place through the planning office to make sure that it aligns with the land use laws and whatnot that we have. One of the elements of the impact that it has on our infrastructure is one of the ways that it's looked at is through some of the system development charges that we charge for a particular user that may be coming in and what they may ask for over and above that and what agreement might be negotiated. I'm thinking of the infrastructure agreement that we had with Google for the 2 most recent data centers. And I'll use this as a plug again to encourage, and it's identified in our strategic plan, the next topic on the agenda, encourage the council to take up that conversation around system development charges and some of the other fees that we charge for big developments that are coming in because of the impacts that they have to our infrastructure system.
So it's not quite the same thing, what you're suggesting. And you're correct. It starts in the planning department. It's like a site review, right? So you have somebody coming in. So for example, what Maine does is a big developer comes in, part of the fees they pay go into a pot where then, not that the planning department has to have an economic analyst on staff, but you hire that consultant. These economic analysis methodologies are pretty standardized. I mean, I've seen several already in some certain projects here in Oregon. So you have standardized methodology to assess whether this project coming in, whatever it is, will benefit the community. So it's more than SDC charges. It's not things that, buildable land. It's looking at the economics of a project to see, will it benefit? And looking at all of it. You've got your tangibles, your intangibles, your infrastructures, but it's the jobs, that we need to look at. Because, for example, in fact, I think I saw it in this report, Google was supposed to have originally 150 employees per each of those tax incentive sites. And yet the report says Google has 200 employees. And I'm like, is that all 5? If it was supposed to have been 150 per site, then we should be up at 750 employees. But not saying anything about that. I just want there to be the tools to have this analysis. So as a project comes in, you go through site review. We don't have it where the public wants to talk about the economics and we're pushed aside because there's nothing in your processes that allow for that information to come forward. See what I mean?
Yeah, kind of. I think, we have brought in consultants in years past to perform some of those analyses on a case by case basis, which is kind of the point that you're trying to make, that's not present here. I think one of the elements that I was trying to tie it to a little bit is where the city has authority to review or and potentially deny, for example. And so, we require that a development pay certain SDCs. We require a development to go through a land use review process. The analysis, I'm not saying it's not important, but if the analysis didn't show what we wanted, for example, we would still put them through that process. And as a private developer, they have the ability to go through that. But the economic incentive piece might be different.
But you just hit on it, saying where is the city's authority to assess that? Because a developer could say, hey, I'm meeting your SDCs, everything else, I have the green light. So that's why it's important. I mean, take a look at the state of Maine, look back at the record to see, was that ever done, that direction to look at requiring economic analysis? Because then if it's a project that, sure, they pay all the fees, all that, they don't need any tax incentives, but it could be something that we don't want for our community for economic reasons. And you have the tools then to look at that and justify your decision.
Council Runyon.
So just using your example back then, first of all, it was out of the city limits, that particular project. The city can only evaluate sewer, water, those types of things, roads, et cetera, that connect. And I think they do a pretty good job of that. But as far as the terms of any company coming into the Dalles, you have a private landowner, unless we own the land. If it's a private landowner and a private company, they're making their own deal about why it's good to sell it to them and why it's good for them to come in. And it's pretty hard for the city and or county back then with that example to be in the middle of that. We might, have headlines in the newspaper, no, we don't want this or we don't want that, but it's not the city or county's role to deny a company that wants to come here and sees a deal on a piece of land. So I don't put that on our planning department at all. That's a private transaction. How would you solve that?
But Rod, you don't have a company coming in doing whatever they want because they have to meet site review. There's a lot of guidelines companies have to meet already. We could just add and look at state of Maine as an example as a way to make sure we're enhancing our community in the best way we can.
Well, it's just a question.
I know. So that's why I encourage you to go back to the state of Maine, and it's that specific law they have as a state statute for developers of 100,000 feet or more. And I just looked to see if it was on there, and it's called Informed Growth Act. As I said, the planning department, all those years in history, was supposed to have looked at it as just having a tool for you guys, along with the site review, to see if this is something that is good for our community. So I'm just saying, don't want to see us back in the same point where, like you said, it's a private landowner. We have a very skeleton of a site review requirement. We check all the boxes there and this project happens, but it could be harmful from a net job loss. It could be harmful from infrastructure, perhaps.
But that could be with anything.
Right. So that's why, wouldn't it be better to have the tools to assess that?
Yeah. No, I think it's a good point. I don't know if it's within the realm of city and county government to move into that role. I mean, if that was the case, there's a certain business on 6th Street that wouldn't be there in my view. But,
Hey, but if it provides jobs, right, and not taking it from anybody else, then it's probably okay.
I think you raised good points, but I'm not sure how we get there. And I think we'll talk about it some more.
Yeah, maybe something coming through Planning Commission again.
And I think, have you been on our Planning Commission before?
I've been in front of the Planning Commission, not on it.
I definitely think when we have an opening, you need to be on it.
Thanks, Rod.
I would second that. I think that would be really useful. And in fact, I'm intrigued by the idea of an Informed Growth Act, or what tools we have locally, because as you point out, we do have the authority to put some amount of hoops in front of companies. We do have some rules. Some of them, hopefully all of them are wise, and maybe there's just some that are there. I would personally be, I'm certainly not going to hold up the BLI discussion for it.
Yeah,
But
right.
I appreciate that you took this opportunity to bring it up. And I would be intrigued by us exploring that. Maybe it's something for a sustainable city project to explore something along those lines for projects that hit a certain threshold of impact.
Mhm.
You know, as you said,
Yeah,
maybe it's a 100,000 square feet of construction, or it's whatever it is, asking for city incentives or some mix of those things.
That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for Louise? Thank you very much for your comments.
Well,
Okay, next on the public hearing process is responding to any public testimony. I think we've already done that. Unless anybody else has oh, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry, I should have recognized that. Come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Unpopular. I'm Roger Nichols, 1617 Oregon Street, and the job of those of us in the Fourth Estate is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. And I'm going to chastise you guys right now for inequity in dealing with people who come to testify. Gave 20 minutes to Louise, got somebody off who wanted 3 minutes. This is not the way to behave. Please, if you're going to set rules, you follow them. Thanks. Thank you.
Well, I think she had a lot of points that deserved consideration. I don't have a problem with the discussion that happened with her. As for the other gentleman, that's always a difficult, very difficult on my part decision to make as to whether to cut somebody off who I didn't think was contributing to the discussion that was on the agenda. So I'll take the hit for that, and I appreciate
Mr.
your
Mayor.
comment. Yes.
Can I just weigh in?
Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate Mr. Nichols' perspective very much, Roger, as you know. There's a fundamental difference between, is this better? Can you hear me okay? There's a fundamental difference between public comment, like we have at every city council meeting, and public testimony during a legislative public hearing. The intent behind those ideas is, one is to bring your ideas forth to the council and have an opportunity up to 3 minutes to provide that. And the other is to weigh in on legislation that impacts the public health, safety, and welfare of the community. And especially when it comes to state law, when it comes to testimony that is on the record before a legislative committee like the city council, there's quite a bit of opportunity and leeway for the council to regulate the types of testimony that it receives, which is different than the types of comment that it takes during the public comment portion of a meeting. I think that during the public comment portion of the meeting, everybody has the right to talk. They have up to 3 minutes to talk. That is the right. The city council rule sets that right, and no one ever gets less than 3 minutes. And I do believe that every person who's ever spoken here in the last 5 years, as I've been the city attorney, almost 6 years now, has never been given less than that. So, but I think the mayor has heard your point, well taken. I just wanted to mention that during a legislative public hearing, which is what this is, the rules are very different under state law. So I didn't know if that mattered much for you personally, but I just wanted to share it for the council and for the mayor as well, and for the record, most importantly, during a legislative public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to invite any member of the city council to advise me on the way that might have been handled. And if you have a different idea or a suggestion on how that particular process can be improved, I would very much like to hear from you. So we'll leave it at that. Okay. Any other, is there any other public testimony anyone would like to address the city council during this public hearing for up to 3 minutes? Anybody? Okay. Let the record show that no one cares to testify. Okay. Do the counselors feel they have enough information to make a decision? I see a few heads nodding.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the council ready for deliberations? Okay. I see a lot of nodding of the head. So with that, I'm closing the public hearing portion of the meeting. And the public hearing is now closed. Does the council have any comments they'd like to make, or is somebody ready to make a motion?
I'm ready to make a motion, I think, if I can find where it is.
To get to that, is there any other comments the council would like to make? Any on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I do want to say that the public hearing is not closed.
Well,
You've been saying it wrong for years. I think it's time I put you on blast in public. It is not closed. It closes when the motion is made.
by what this says.
It says the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. It does not say that the public hearing is closed. I wrote it myself.
That you had talked about on page.
You explain.
That's the motion.
Well, we'll discuss this after the meeting because I take exception to what's in writing here. Okay, so the public hearing is now reopened, I guess. Any other testimony before we close the public hearing? Okay, I don't really understand the difference. Okay, is the council ready to make a motion?
Yes.
Council Runyon, well, before you make the motion, well, go ahead and make your motion.
Well, I'm going to move to adopt General Ordinance 26-1425 with an amendment to 5.3 that would state, and I wrote it out here, hang on. Shoot, there we go. 5.3 would say research and review with local information and technology companies, CGCC, and STEM organizations. And the other change I would have would be to keep the economic history page and allow the planning director to do that rewrite on it with not having to bring it back, but to update it and bring it back a shorter version to be included, because I think it was important to have that history in there. So with those two things, approving 26-1425, an ordinance for the adoption of the employment opportunities analysis and employment buildable lands inventory, and amendments to Goal 9, economic development of the Dalles Comprehensive Land Use Plan based upon the findings of fact and conclusions of law set forth in the agenda staff report by title only as presented. Did I read the right one? He handed it to me.
Well, then I guess, Council Richardson, would you like to second the motion?
Sure, I second as
You want to
amended.
say something, Mr. Kara?
It sounded like Councilor Runyon said as presented, but there was a modification. And so I think the wrong one was read, but it's close enough. It's as amended, I think is what Councilor Runyon meant to
I
say.
said that at the top.
You did say that at the top. And also I'll just correct at the end as well. We should just have it say as amended.
Okay.
And I believe that's also the motion that Councilor Richardson seconded. So.
Yes, the amended motion.
Okay, is there any discussion about the motion? Councilor Ring?
Thank you. Quick question about the motion. So Councilor Runyon mentioned that there'd be the economic history included as well as the adjustment to section 5.3. Does that inclusion of economic history need to come back to City Council as an amendment if we adopt this tonight? I'm just curious about sort of the procedural order operation.
Can the city clerk please read back the motion if possible? Close enough? No? Right. After it is updated, meaning the current history that's been like from the year 2007.
I did not ask for it to be brought back if you prefer, but just to update the dates and so forth and companies that are involved in it to a more current style and shorten it down if that's,
I think so. I get to the crux of Councilor Ring's question. It's just that there's no language currently that we're just modifying a few words on. It sounds like we'd have to write history.
yeah, that's really what we're doing. It's just fine.
It wouldn't be able to be amended to that degree and adopted tonight. If you're insisting on like a 20-year history that no one has written yet, we could bring it back and at a future meeting to adopt it. It just couldn't be adopted tonight with that open-ended of a modification. Modifying a section to have a few words as a typo, as a procedural issue, that's just fine, especially since we're reading aloud the changes, substantive changes, which is what the charter authorizes during the city council meeting. But when it's a wide open, unless there's actual language that can be either administratively added or literally spoken into the microphone tonight, you can't adopt it like that.
Mr. Klebs?
So if I may, the history that we're talking about will continue to exist in the prior document, the history, if you will, of the history. And so it's unless I'm incorrect, I guess what I was kind of thinking is that the prior verbiage in our economic opportunities analysis BLI and in chapter 9 exists in some fashion in the city's records. And I'm wondering if there's just the modification here to capture that history as a reference point is please see for additional historic economic information of how the Dalles has developed over time, please see our prior X. But maybe Josh can speak to that a little bit and that will help solve this.
Yeah, I mean, as a standalone document, ultimately, once you amend the comprehensive plan, we will have the old text, but it won't be readily available by any means. So that's where it could be kind of a rub. Making the change, of course, into this newly adopted comprehensive plan would be the best way to memorialize it. However, there could be an ancillary document that we have maybe on the city's website, but it wouldn't be really anything too official like a comprehensive plan would be. To do that, if that's what we want to do, or we can bring it back. It seems like a rather easy, straightforward thing to bring back in front of you. But just my thoughts.
Could you bring it back on the consent agenda? Would you feel comfortable doing that?
No. I don't know if we can, actually.
Yeah, I don't think we can.
Well, is there any harm in bringing it back to the first meeting in March?
You have to look at Matthew and Amy for the agendas. It might be hard for the agendas, but
I would think that this wouldn't take a whole lot of discussion or time at the next meeting. Or the other option is just to go with Councilor Runyon's motion as he stated it and make sure it's clear to everybody.
I think what's tricky about the motion is that there's no text for us to go to. 5.3, there's text to go to, easy change. But it would be the text of us potentially, rewriting a little bit of the former history.
and is expanding it from 2007 to today with today's history, like the last 19 years of history would be added on.
So I'm if I may, I'm looking at the text that was struck, and there is, for nearly every paragraph, there is a date reference. 1988, 1990, 1993, 2002. Are you comfortable with the text that's currently in there? We can just bring it back and continue.
That's what I understood the motion was. Yeah.
Without revision.
No, with supplementing from 2007 to 2026.
Which is what is proposed to go in there.
Well, as I recall, there were companies that don't even exist anymore in there. They need to be struck.
That's the history that you want to keep, correct? That's the history that you want to keep, correct? So I guess what I'm saying is if you turn to your packet on page 80.
Well, the history was there, didn't go back to the beginning of time in the city. It went back to that date. So I'm thinking it's the same sort of thing, but just updated.
Page 80 of the packet.
Why is it 80? There's nothing struck.
Page 82.
If you start on page 80, you'll see what's proposed to be written in the new packet, right?
Yes.
Then on page 82, as you're saying, that's what's going to be struck. Well, I guess what I'm proposing was that we just keep page 82 and the beginning of page 83 as part of that history, if you're comfortable with that language, but
We can do that.
I'm just trying to find a solution.
That's fine. You can do that.
There is something struck on page 80. Those one in the middle of the page in red.
Yeah, that would still be struck out. Yeah.
So that's not a problem.
That's fine.
We'll strike out what's proposed to be struck out on page 80. Keep the update on page 80 and 81, and then we would simply keep what has been struck out on 82 in the beginning of 83.
Which is all in red.
Which is all in red, and that's the history that I think Councilor Runyon is interested in maintaining.
Was that your intention, Council Runyon?
I
What he
think
just
so.
said?
I mean, there's most of the things in there could be left as is. It's really, as you talked about earlier, modification to make it sound like it's current, like we actually did something here.
Question.
Council Ring?
Maybe a suggestion, if we keep the current history as written, then we can come back with an amendment to just that section as we needed. So it would give people time to come up with that more current history and strike some of the references that were old and don't exist anymore. Is that inaccurate? I just want to make sure we get it right so we can
Yeah.
get it done.
That would work.
Okay.
Okay. So is there a need for you to,
I would prefer if the motion just failed. Take a quick vote, and have it fail, and then pass another, make another motion in a second.
can he withdraw his motion?
It would just be easier if it failed.
Okay, all those in favor of Council Runyon's motion, please say aye. All those opposed, please say aye.
Aye.
Say
Nay.
Well, I've heard it both ways. Do I hear 5 nays?
Oh,
Yep.
Yes.
Do, okay. You want to submit another motion, Council Runyon?
I don't know.
I think the motion should be consistent with what the city manager just repeated a couple minutes ago.
Okay.
And that is to strike the small paragraph on page 80 and include the rest of page 80, 81. And then allow the language that was originally stricken on page 82 in red and then page 83 in red, and not strike that. Or once you, I can't read that.
Okay, so I think the proposal is to make the revision as you described to section or to policy 5.3.
5.3 and yeah.
To restore the struck language beginning on page 82 and ending on page 83, right before economic forecast, and allowing staff to make changes as needed.
And they could bring that piece back to us to approve, I guess, huh?
So what I'm looking at is avoiding having to bring it back again.
Oh, okay.
Have to do it if we did it that
That's
way.
what I wanted to do.
I could just clarify, the next time that the EOAs and the BLI is updated, which it's every certain number of years, we can do that. But it wouldn't be anytime soon. If that still works, it could be adopted tonight. And those sort of little micro edits, just to sort of modernize it, that could be added to our to-do list for the next go around. But it wouldn't be anytime soon.
Then just leave the mess there.
Which mess?
Just leave the mess there then. Or delete the whole page like you've done already. History is not important, so that's fine.
No, I mean, it's about undoing the deletion. We can bring that back, no problem. I mean, it doesn't need to be brought back. You can adopt it tonight as you just described. I feel like you've maybe I haven't expressed myself because I feel like I'm agreeing with you. I think that it could be done tonight. It doesn't need to be brought back.
I just saw a lot of red lines for the complete history of our economy, and I thought there's valuable things there to look at later on down the road.
Report. Let's
20 years from now when we go to look at it again.
Let's leave it in then. I think everybody here, nobody is disagreeing with leaving it
Leave it
in.
in.
Yeah, we'll just leave it in as is as is.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I said.
Is the city clerk pretty clear on what the motion is? I hate to ask. Good answer. Okay, it's been moved by Council Runyon and seconded by Council Richardson.
Yes. Happy
Okay.
to. Yes.
Okay, and everybody is clear on what we're doing here? Except for the one who made the motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion by Council Runyon and seconded by Council Richardson, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, yes. Is that what you were going to say?
Mhm.
Does anybody here want the ordinance read in its entirety?
Oh, boy.
Will the city clerk please read the ordinance by title only? Is this an ordinance or is?
General Ordinance number 26-1425, an ordinance for adoption of the Employment Opportunities Analysis and Employment Buildable Lands Inventory and amendments to Goal 9, Economic Development of the Dalles Comprehensive Land Use Plan.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. I
Aye.
think we already, any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Does that conclude this particular item? Okay. Now we are going to item 11A, which is adoption of the city's strategic plan. Mr. Klebs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In prior years, the City Council has established annual goals to guide our organization and prioritize our efforts. Building on the success of our prior annual goal-setting efforts, this year we embarked on a 3-year strategic planning effort to provide greater continuity, clearer alignment across city departments, and stronger long-term focus. Once again, we partnered with SSW Consulting to facilitate a 1.5-day strategic workshop with the city council and city leadership staff. Not only did we focus on our goals, but we also did some work on updating our vision, mission, and values, and along with the multi-year goals, as I mentioned, strategies, and their intended outcomes. Included in your packet under attachment A is notes from that meeting that we had back in November. Following that workshop, staff continued to work with SSW Consulting to refine those strategies and identify some of the things that we would be pursuing over the next 3 years to support achieving those goals. We also had organization-wide staff engagement through a survey focused on the proposed vision, mission, and values, which has also been included and incorporated into the document. This is something that we hope to continue and strengthen over time, not only as part of this process, but as you'll see on our goal document itself, improving some of our internal and external communication work. The actions that are included in this document, the proposed items that we'll be working on, are intended to remain adaptable, meaning that this is somewhat of a living document. You know, if there's a new priority or a new issue that comes up, we'll have that discussion here or receive your direction and guidance. But it will allow us to remember everything that we're working on, and that if we prioritize everything, we really prioritize nothing. So if we're going to embark on a new objective or a new task, something probably has to come off the plate. There's only so much time and so many resources to go around. Over this last year, I've endeavored to update the council at least a few times on the progress that we've made toward these goals. It's a little difficult that first quarter because we've just gone through the process and we're adopting this plan, but having this multi-year document will assist that, I believe. It's my objective here to provide you some kind of quarterly update. And then finally, as we kind of shake this out, I think the other area to potentially strengthen is some of the metrics that we use to track progress and achieve success. From a budget implication standpoint, there's nothing directly associated in terms of an expense with adopting this tonight, but it is going to be our guiding document not only for this budget cycle, but the future budget cycles as well. One thing I wanted to note is that, you know, maybe we're our own worst enemy in certain ways, that this is a very ambitious work plan. There is a lot in this document. And I have to constantly remind myself and remind staff, and I want to remind all of us that We are limited in certain ways with the resources that we have, the staff that we have, the number of hours that we have in the day. And again, this is a living document. It's an aggressive document. There's a lot identified in this proposal. And in the quarterly updates that I provide, I'll keep you appraised on how we're progressing on those objectives. I anticipate changes, though, as things work out and unexpected things come up. Staff's recommendation is to adopt this tonight as presented. That being said, a couple things that I wanted to highlight in the goal document itself. And let me just pull it up here. And for the record, and for those in attendance, starting on page 4. Once it loads, I can pivot here. On page 4, there's a highlight of our organization's vision and mission. Our mission is serving the Dalles with safety, transparency, and care. We serve the Dalles by providing essential services and infrastructure that keep the community safe, connected, and thriving, honoring our roots while building future opportunity. Our vision is trust at our core, resilience is our future, resilience in our future. The Dalles is a historic river community and regional crossroads where transparency, service, and connection guide us. With resilient infrastructure, engaged people, and inviting sense of place, we strive to be a top workplace and a connected community where every generation can thrive. Leading us are some of our key values of integrity, responsibility, equity, service, and collaboration. If you turn to page 6, you'll have the broad themes of the different goals that we identified. Again, public relations, community engagement, and customer service as the first. Second is public infrastructure, modern IT, dependable vehicles and equipment. Third is fiscal sustainability, cost recovery, and efficiency. Fourth is safe, resilient, and thriving community. Fifth is housing production, affordability, and renovation. Sixth is economic vitality and resiliency. And seventh is workplace organization. So as I mentioned, under each of those goal areas are numerous actions that different city departments will work to fulfill, along with a prioritization over 2026, 2027, 28, which is the following several pages. And then at the tail end is where some of the community survey, our process, our timeline is captured, and how we went about producing this document. I should also note that we also, in addition to the internal survey, we had an external survey with the community at the beginning of this process, which informed much of our discussion at the work session that we had in November. And so with that, that's kind of the overview of the document included in your packet. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have or provide any additional clarity you may need around anything identified within it. Thank you very much.
Any questions for the city manager?
Yes. How many years is this in effect a planning document?
This is a 3-year strategic planning document. So we've identified what we're going to be working on and what our goals are for the next 3 years.
It says 2026, 2028.
6, 27, 28.
Got it.
That's 3.
Just didn't count it.
We had to correct it actually when we first put it together.
Don't give it me. Okay. Yeah, I tallied up the numbers here of tasks over a 3-year period. It comes to 126. Just so for those of you that didn't want to bother adding up all the task. And public infrastructure, Dale, our Director of Public Works must have had some input, because we have 39 issues related to public infrastructure, and the next highest under that is public relations, which is 20. So I see you had some input into this strategic plan, Mr. McCabe. Any other questions for the city manager?
Nope. I have a question and a comment, maybe 2 comments. First, the question, Mr. Klebs, do you anticipate that we will be updating this on a rolling basis, like for instance, at our annual goal setting?
That's a really great question. We've typically done that annual goal setting, at least for the last few years, in November. And honestly, I think it's it's kind of a question mark about what we may do at this coming November. what the format may be, what it may look like, who we might use as a facilitator. And I think some of that discussion will need to happen between now and then. I think it also may be impacted by how far we get on some of our priorities. If we're able to knock quite a few of them off, it may be timely to have a conversation about reprioritization or identifying new items or items that we no longer want to pursue, for example. But I anticipate that it's going to take us a while to get through a lot of these, and some of them are far longer than 3-year projects, frankly. Speaking of public infrastructure, one of the big things facing public works or this community is replacing the water treatment plant. That's a 10-year-long endeavor. It's not going away anytime soon. So I think there's some discussion to be had on that front on what we do, arguably in quote the off years, if you may, and then the progress that we make overall in the document.
Well, Mike, one of my comments is that this does represent an enormous amount of work, and I'm proud of our city government, our staff, and ourselves, and not essentially resting on our laurels, but continually trying to push a lot of things forward. So good work. Thank you for that. And I'm very happy to support this and would be happy to make the motion with the caveat that we must in some form have the council review and wrestle with some of these at our annual retreat. I think we need to get to some degree into some specifics and not be divorced from the formulation and the prioritization. We need to have at least a conversation about that.
I was going to ask about the relationship between our November goal setting session and our 3-year strategic plan. I think you did the best you could to answer that. So were you satisfied with the answer as well?
Yes, with the caveat that we need to get at it start next time. I'm not going to go back and rehash would'ves or could'ves, but I think going forward, we just need to have that level of specificity somewhere in the conversation with council and staff together.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Klebs? Council Runyon?
Only that when we do get to a vote, it probably would be proper for me to abstain, as my job took me out of the community and I wasn't able to attend the meeting. I've read it thoroughly and made a lot of notes about it. It's a heck of an undertaking. Good luck. But I was not a part of that process due to my work commitment. So is that appropriate?
You weren't part of the goal setting session, you mean, right?
What's that?
You weren't part of the goal setting session in November, right? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I thought we're talking about that deal at the college.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Yep. I think that's a good instinct, Councilor Runyon. But I think if you've watched the tapes, then you have as much of an idea of the minutes of that meeting since you watched the meeting and you had notes on it. I think it'd be wholly appropriate for you to participate in that.
Okay.
You're just fine on
I
that.
just want to be sure, put it out on the table.
I think so.
I wasn't in person there to, vote yay or nay on any of the subjects. So.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Richardson, did you want to make a motion?
Yeah, happy to. I move rather to adopt the 2026 through 2028 strategic plan as presented.
Second it.
It's been moved by Councilor Richardson and seconded by Councilor Randall to adopt the 3-year strategic plan. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And finally, we have 11B, which is an update on progress related to the resolution that I alluded to under public discussion. And I will turn it over to Mr. Klebs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a recap, on January 12th, 2026, the City Council adopted resolution number 26-002, acknowledging community impacts associated with heightened federal immigration enforcement activity, reaffirming our commitment to accessible municipal services and lawful city operations, and directing myself to pursue certain community support actions. That resolution was focused on fact-based communication to reduce misinformation, support access to essential city services, coordinating with community-based organizations, working with the Next Door Inc. and One Community Health, supporting internal communication and training for city staff, and bringing back a written update on progress and any recommended next steps. Second page of my staff report details some of the work that staff has done to date. First and foremost, we've posted additional informational videos on our social media platforms featuring the police chief and Detective Castro explaining the role of the local police department in ensuring safety within the city and clarifying what local law enforcement can and cannot do under Oregon law, more specifically under Oregon's sanctuary laws. Thank you to the chief and Detective Castro for participating in that. The city's website has been updated with a dedicated information page and FAQ, along with a pop-up on the main page to make it easier to find that information. We've also begun translating our most commonly used forms. Well, we have translated some of them. We're continuing to translate the most commonly used forms into Spanish to have those services and needs be more accessible. Thank you to Amy, most notably on some of that public information outreach and updates there. We have an internal Latino affinity group, which has met 4 times to date and is currently planning to meet twice per month. This group is crafting kind of an overarching charter to guide their work. They reviewed the city's facilities trespass policy, identified operational and training opportunities, and fielding some of those concerns expressed by staff. This feedback is being compiled and will be reviewed by myself and the city attorney. This also serves as an internal forum for employee networking and support, and for identifying practical community engagement ideas. Thank you to Brenda for helping to facilitate that, and for Abby and other staff for participating. I think that's a healthy thing to do, not only now, but long term. I've also been in touch with other city managers and other communities about what they may be doing, what some of their approaches may be. And I think one of the things I heard from several different individuals is keeping an eye on what the state is doing at the state level, in particular during this state session, and seeing what comes out of it that we might be interested in. I had some conversation, as noted in the resolution, with One Community Health, and we don't have a specific funding recommendation at this time. I'll be getting to the proposal in a moment with the Nextdoor Inc. Finally, the city is a member of the Oregon Latinos in Local Government and have been for the past few years. Abby in my office was recently appointed to their board of directors, so we have great membership and involvement there, and great resource to avail as well now and moving forward. And so finally, I met with Janet, who is here in the audience today and can assist with any questions that I'm unable to handle, with the Nextdoor Inc., and received a proposal that is included in your packet for the council's review, along with some background information and demographic data on the services that they provide and who they're able to reach out to. The proposal included 3 components. First is funding to provide additional counseling services for children and families who have been impacted by this heightened federal immigration enforcement and do not have coverage through OHP. Supplemental funding to maintain counseling service capacity in light of reduced Pacific Source reimbursement, and funding to support community preparedness, community health worker position, and some of the funding difficulties that they're having there. What I'm recommending this evening, and what I would encourage City Council to focus on, is item 1, those additional counseling services for children and families who may have been impacted. One thing I wanted to note is the Nextdoor Inc. is also working with the City of Hood River. And so for some regional awareness, they're exploring a partnership there that maybe Janet can give more of an update on, but I think it includes various listening sessions. And ultimately, I think it will be a special city council meeting or town hall style venue that I think we're all welcome to attend as well. For the budget implications, there are funds available in my budget for fiscal year 25-26, up to $17,784. We're recommending using up to $19,000 of those funds to support item 1 in this proposal. That sufficient budgetary authority exists in my budget to be able to respond timely to situations such as this, where some unexpected action has been taken, and we're looking to respond as quickly as we can. So staff's recommendation is to direct the city manager to finalize a grant agreement with the Nextdoor Inc. in an amount not to exceed $19,000 from this budget cycle to support direct costs associated with counseling services for children and families in the Dalles experiencing impacts related to heightened federal immigration enforcement activity. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, or defer to the mayor if Janet has any additional comments she wants to make.
Well, I will be asking anyone in the audience if they'd like to comment, but before I do that, does anybody on the council have any questions for the city manager before I do that?
Just one quick one, if I may. So just to be very clear, this is already budgeted. It's within the city manager's purview. You're just kind of running it by us to make sure we're all on the same page.
Councilor Lynch, I think that's a really great question. The resolution we passed specifically directed me to come back to council with this update and to get your authority before moving forward. Normally, and I may defer to the city attorney here if I get this wrong, this budgetary authority and the spending authorities that I have would allow me to go forward regardless. That's why there's no declaration of emergency or anything like that to free up those authorities. So in this instance, under that resolution, that's why we're back here this evening.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the city manager?
Can you,
Sorry, Council Ring.
thanks, Mr. Mayor. What was you mentioned two numbers and I want to make sure that I heard the first one correct. The resolutions for 19,000, but the number before.
My apologies. So in my budget is approximately $20,000 to respond to some of these incidents where we need more timely response. It's an unexpected expense. Of the $20,000, 19,784 is remaining. I think the expenditure in that line may have been for some of the expenses associated with our city council meeting at the middle school, because we had some IT needs and other services for that. So of that 19,784, we're recommending just a flat 19 between now and the end of the fiscal year.
$216 by my calculations. Spent at the middle school.
Okay, correct.
Any other questions for the city manager?
Just to clarify on number 3, since there is a limit on the funds, we're not looking into an employee ongoing salaries, et cetera. This is a one-time thing that may or may not help with the hiring of that employee by the next door. Is that correct?
There were 3 components to the proposal that was submitted by the Next Door Inc. The third one is the community preparedness, community health worker position, which I believe only has funding through the end of this fiscal year. The proposal for the use of city funds will be specifically for number 1 only.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Anybody else? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this proposal? Okay. Councilor McLaughlin, did you want to?
I can make a motion
Please do.
if we're at that point. Mr. Mayor, I move to direct the city manager to finalize a grant agreement with the Next Door Inc. in the amount not to exceed $19,000 from available fiscal year 25-26 budget authority to support direct costs associated with counseling services for children and families in the Dalles experiencing impacts related to heightened federal immigration enforcement activity.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved by Councilor McLaughlin and seconded by Councilor Richardson to direct the city manager to finalize the grant agreement with Nextdoor. Is there any other discussion or questions? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you, Janet, for all your help and assistance. Okay. Where is that? The City Council of the City of the Dalles will now meet in executive session in accordance with ORS 192.6602D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Representatives of the news media shall not be allowed to attend the executive session. All members of the audience are asked to leave the room. We'll be meeting in the council conference room.
We can just stay. There's not a Zoom link, so we can meet right here. It's
Okay, we're going to be meeting in here. So those of you that members of the audience are asked to leave the room. No final decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back in the room. We expect to return to open session in about 20 minutes. Back in open session. Back in open session. It's 25 minutes to 9. Anybody have any other business before the city council that would like to bring up? Seeing